My name is Zalka Gesari. Some of the things that we look for when we're looking for employees is we're looking for our brand ambassadors. Ideally, that is the main reason. Those are the people we're looking for. People who are going to drive our brand, people who are going to make us achieve our objective as the organization. So what are you supposed to do in order for you to be that one person who's going to drive our brand? Businesses have different reasons as to why they're in the market. And one of the main reasons that cuts across on all the businesses, from a mama mboga, I'm sure you guys know, a mama mboga can be an employer, all the way up to a corporate organization. We're looking for the very same basic thing. Number one, we want to optimize on our costs. Number two, we want to generate more revenue. That is the main reason as to why we exist in the business. So, who are these guys we're looking for to help us drive that goal? We're looking for someone who was, you cannot sell a brand, another person's brand, if you've not worked on your brand as a person. That's why in the morning, my colleague mentioned something to do with personal branding. You have to brand yourself as a person before you come to sell our brand. So in personal branding, we look at very many things. We start with the basics. Though I know the Generation X and Y might not agree with me, the way you present yourself as a person. In terms of dressing, as we always told, you dress for the job you want. So your first impression matters. Other than that, the way you're going to present yourself, that is communication skills. The way you relate with people, I'm sure you guys know, there are potential employers amongst ourselves. So if you don't carry yourself as a potential employee, there's a possibility the potential employers within us will also miss out on getting to see you. And then CV. We look at a CV, but what you need to know, the CV is not everything. Because you can present yourself and market yourself so well on paper, but when it comes to the real gig, you're not able to perform. So CV is another thing that we look at. And in the CV, if you express yourself in form of the achievements or what you can do, the better. As opposed to highlighting issues and saying I can do A, B, C, D. A CV is not a JD. A CV is a tool. A JD, by JD I mean job description. A CV is not a list of paper that shows everything that you can do. We want to see what you've done and what you can do for that organization. That's why we're saying you concentrate on your achievements. Besides achievements, education is key. Reason being, for a person to be competent, there are three things that you need to concentrate on. The first one is knowledge, which everybody gets in school. That's why people go to college, to get the knowledge. The second one is skill. You transform that knowledge into a skill. Skill in the sense that what you learned in school, you now bring it into the market. You're practicing. The more you get to practice, you eventually become competent. So it becomes a competence. Somebody might ask, you telling me when you guys are employing, you're saying you need people who have experience. Where am I going to get that experience from? Number one, there are opportunities for people to volunteer. So the more you volunteer in an organization, the more you're gaining experience. That's number one. Number two, the other thing that people need to know, you don't need to look for a job in the area that you went to school for. Nowadays, we have engineers who are in the financial sector. So in between, you can change your passion, you can change careers based on what you would want to do. So people can shift. Again, we cannot keep on saying, oh, I'm not getting a job, I did this in campus, this is the type of job I'm looking for. Let's be open-minded. Another thing that we're looking for is willingness to learn and work. Unfortunately, the generation we're dealing with now, people have already set standards on what they need. You meet very young people saying, when they're conversing, sidhani mimi naweza chukua job yenye naweza nilipa below 100k. 100k, hiyo sichukui. So what you need to know, you need to start from somewhere. Somebody can give you an opportunity that can give you as little as 15k. And then within a year, things transform based on how well you did that job. So take up whatever opportunity that you'll come across, which will be like a foundation or a stepping stone for the next big thing that you're looking for. Thank you.
Oh, Danset. Erika talks about attitude. People talking, or they say we can't take this amount of money. Are there people who have appeared in some of your panels and you get disappointed by either the way they present, or there's a disconnect between the papers they presented and the way they are talking? Are there some of the disappointments that you've come across? What is your experience that you can share to the viewers this evening?
Good afternoon. These disappointments are always there. And as long as you have human beings, you'll never miss to have these disappointments. Sometimes what you see on paper does not represent the real person that you see or the real person that you meet. I've come across a situation where someone clearly says the number of years he has had in working in this field, doing this and that, being a supervisor for a number of years. I remember when that person came, normally HR is a secretariat in interview panels. When that person came, I was a secretary in that panel. A few questions here and there, we actually realized that he's not the one who prepared the application and the CV. He had asked someone else to do it, forward it to the organization, and then for him, and put his number there. So he was just called, and he came. He didn't have, we normally ask for original papers. He didn't have original papers. The only thing he had with him was the same CV that he sent, but folded and put, inside here, the court. Nothing else. So when I was asking for the papers, he was a bit reluctant to remove it. But when he finally gave it out, I looked at the way it was folded, I looked at the application, I looked at the person, I saw 3 totally different things. Anyway, we had to interview the person. We sat down, we asked him a few questions here and there. And of course, there were lies from the ID because there was an age limit. A number of things were not adding up. That, of course, made us really disappointed that what we thought, when you're shortlisted for an interview, it means, you've passed a certain category. You've met certain minimum requirements. So in short, the guy did not meet the minimum requirements. Another one also gave a very bright CV. She was invited, presented herself, and during the question time, and as she mentioned, there is something called attitude. What kind of person are you presenting yourself to be? Because remember, you want to sell yourself as the best person among all the people who have been called for the interview. So there are a number of questions that you are asked, and of course HR will ask a question that normally relates with the way you interact with other staff. And of course it came out that this lady is actually a fighter. Fighter in the sense that, I'll knock you out. It just came out clearly. If I get a staff who is delaying me, that is nonsense. I'll kick her off or I'll kick him out. That is someone talking like that in a panel. And you're looking for a job. My friend, when you're looking for a job, first of all, before you go for that job, ask God to give you humility. Amen? Ask God to humble your heart. And then present yourself as the best person. This is a person who you'll come to an organization, you find people who are coming from different backgrounds, you'll find supervisors who are rude, you'll find people who have been brought up in different ways. Some people have been brought in by politicians. So, there is a way you need to get your feet in. But if you come there to make yourself look like, unajua mimi sichezi na watu na sicheki na watu, and that is at the interview. If you get that job, you must be very well connected. So those are some of the very disappointing scenarios that we've had. Some come with a good CV. Many people will want to make their CVs look excellent. That is good, that is all right. But when you finally get the job, and you're given the job, I don't know if you've seen this clip that has been going around, that a firefighter, in your CV and in the interview, you say, this thing, I'm tough, I can do it. Kuzima moto, that one. Hiyo ni madondo, chakula raisi. And then when a real fire comes, and you're given that hose pipe, you can't hold it. Inakimbia from there to there, when that water imefunguli, it comes out with a lot of pressure. You can't hold it. But in the CV, what did you say? You can do it. It happens. You're given a job to do. Writing a simple memo. By the way, in your paper, you said that you've done up to master's level. But you're asked to do a simple memo, maybe to your GM or to the director, to the MD, a simple, seeking approval to carry out a certain activity or seeking approval to spend money for this and that. You do that memo, and you look at the way it has been done, and you wonder, does this memo look like the master's person that I see here? Because those are two contrasting things, people, the CVS and the person himself. So when you present yourself as being the best, please let it be true. Because the day you'll be given the job to do, it will expose you. And the moment it exposes you, remember the image you create about yourself speaks volumes about you. So you might end up losing many other opportunities, even within the same organization, just because you didn't tell the truth. And as she mentioned, talk more about what you've been able to achieve. What have you been able to do? What results have you been able to produce? But don't mention things that you know you've never achieved. Don't promise heaven when you know that you cannot even go beyond this roof. Don't. Because that will put you in a lot of problems, it will put you in a lot of trouble. It is good to be truthful about yourself. So when you're making your applications, when you get that job, when you do the work, please do it to the best level. And remember that when employers take you in, many times they talk about experience. The reason being, they don't want to take you in and then they come to train you before you start delivering. They want you to come in with that experience so that you come straight to deliver. Remember, there is cost cutting in every organization right now. So make sure that you acquire as much experience as possible. I know experience is not bought anywhere and it is not sold in the shops. If it were, we would all be having enough experience. But unfortunately, that is what many employers are looking for because they want to spend as little money as possible in training you on how to do the job.
Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you very much, Eric Sira. Career in the bank spanning about 30 years. You have had people appearing in your panels. Are there some who have struck you as really good candidates? What are some of the lessons that we can learn? What are some of the things that our viewers, some of them who will probably be appearing in interview panels shortly, need to know? And how do they need to behave when they are before you as a panel? Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, church. Or is it good afternoon, viewers? I'm not a HR practitioner, so I'll give this a shot. I've participated in quite a number of sessions where I've taken people through interviews just to see if we can identify the person who is the best fit for the job. I think if I just talk about the CV in brief, The CV tells us a lot. And ideally, when we are going through the shortlisting process, we rarely take more than 5 minutes when you look at one CV. I think other than the 90-page CVs of professors and doctors, if you're applying for a job, your CV at the very maximum should be 3 to 4 pages. How many pages? 3 to 4 pages. Now, the number of people who apply for jobs nowadays are hundreds, sometimes even thousands. I remember, when Safaricom was advertising for some jobs, there were close to 5,000 applicants. So can you imagine, if you don't summarize your CV, what that means? Yeah, when it's too bulky, it tells us something about you. Now, the key issue when you're preparing your CV, look at the job description. What are the competencies that the organization wants for that specific job? Take those competencies and put them in your CV. That tells us a lot about you as a candidate. You have taken time to understand what job this job requires, and you have transferred that to your CV. It makes it very easy for anybody shortlisting to quickly say, this person knows what we are looking for, other than writing very many stories. So that is important. Now, getting into the interview, first impressions. We look at you, how you enter, how you greet people, how you sit, and how you relax. It tells a lot what kind of person you are. So you need to be very composed, you need to be very calm, you need to greet people. Now, one of the first questions that are usually asked in interviews, tell us about yourself. Now, do you ever think about who you are? Do you ever think about that? So for you to go into a session, you must prepare. And one of the things which you've learned over time, somebody who has not prepared for an interview, when he comes, you will know. By the time they say the first 3 sentences, you know this person is not prepared. Then you start asking yourself, if he or she is not prepared for this interview, how sure are we that he or she is going to do the job? So always prepare. And there are so many ways to prepare. If you're married, talk to your spouse. Go through the job profile. Practice with her. If you're single, go before the mirror. Those are some of the issues which you're told. Talk to the mirror. Do it over and over and over again. You will find when you get into the CVs, into the interview session, it becomes very easy to remember. So practice is very, very important. The other thing which is obvious, keep time. Come about 15, even half an hour before the session, so that you can relax. We've had situations where somebody comes right on time. He's all sweaty and what have you. So if you can't keep time, honestly, what does that tell us about you? And those are the small, small things which can make a difference, because we are living in a very competitive world, very competitive. And those are some of the things which we pick. Now, going into the interview session, you need to understand, is this a management role or is it a leadership role? If it's management, the competencies or the experience that are required of a manager are very different from a leader. Because basically managing is managing people. It's the technical aspect, doing the job. Leadership is more of influencing. Because as a leader, you must be in a position to be able to influence people. So getting into the interview session, when questions are asked, how do you respond to them? You respond by giving examples. Those examples are the ones which will tell us, this person has been in this situation, and this is how he went about it. And there's one very simple way of dealing with questions. It's called a STAR model, S-T-A-R. When you're giving your example, you start with situation. What was the situation you were in? Like, for example, you ask a question, tell us about a situation where you have run a project. Yeah? So you start by giving the situation. Maybe there was a challenge in the institution. And this institution needed to come up with ways of maybe saving costs. So you've set the situation. So what was the task? The task was for me to analyze the root cause of the issues the organization was facing. So what action did you take? Who did you call to come maybe into a committee so that you can work towards resolving that issue. And then finally, what was the result? So you need to be very structured in how you answer those interview questions. Otherwise, if you're not structured, then it becomes very difficult for the panelists to be able to understand what you're saying. And be relevant. We have had cases where somebody asks a question, but what they answer is totally different. Be relevant. Understand what that role is all about. Answer the question that is asked. And prepare, research about that organization, research about that job. And that way, when you go into the session, most likely you're going to end up getting the job. Okay, thank you.
It will be disappointing when you're going to the company and they ask you, have you heard about Barclays before? You say, no, until you invited me. That's when I heard about you. And they'll say, oh, you're looking for, you need to be, people are looking for brands. People to brand their companies, people to work with them. Question time now. This one I know it will be hot, but I'll take only 4. So if your hand is not up by this time, no time for you. So tell us your name and the question in less than 30 seconds.
Thank you. My name is Edwin Otieno. And thank you so much, the panelists, for the good explanations you've given us. Assuming I've prepared for this interview so well, and then when I reach the interview, everything else I've tried to do perfectly, but then a question comes and I don't know the answer flat, and I say I don't know. Is that correct, or what? How do I respond in such a situation?
Thank you. Thank you for being brief and quick. The question is the panelists. Keep your answer. The next question is right here.
Thank you, panelists. My question comes prior to what you've just talked about, CV. How should a cover letter, how long should a cover letter be? What should be in it? And what's the structure? Because that's what's the first thing that you'll deal with before you even look at my CV.
Thank you. I'll take now on this end, the last 2, and then I'll be done. I saw one hand here. Those are the 2 questions we answered tonight. I don't see anybody here. The rest of you are part of the answering of the questions. Do you have a question? All right. You are free to ask on behalf of a friend. You know, feel free to ask on behalf of a friend.
Thank you. My name is Theo. When you ask, tell us more about yourself. What really do you want to hear? Because you have read my CV, you know where I've worked and all that. What do you really want to know?
This will be the last one for sure.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Oure, and I'd love to ask, my question goes to Helka. You said something concerning this generation claiming that they cannot settle for certain types of jobs. My question now comes to the point where I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect because of the models that we are given. Let's say, for example, in school, this is what we are taught vis-a-vis what is happening in the industry. If, for example, Barclays recently rebranded to ABSA, a journey that took, that they didn't do as fast as Akina CBA. And like if you feel like this is what my journey has been and this is the kind of value I feel I could be bringing, I kind of feel it's a bit unfair for the older, with a lot of air quotes, generations to expect of us young people, once, because we live in the age of information, not to have expectations, because very recently we've been taught that even a first-class graduate can miss a job. And if the media is going around peddling that, then what's the use of me getting a first class? What are the other alternatives? Because if a first-class person is going to miss a job, then someone who gets a pass also kind of goes to do whatever it is. What do companies, is it bad for me to come with expectations to a company and say, let's say, for example, I cannot take an earning of below this kind of nini. If I get to that point of self-actualization, is it wrong, or is it, because also the other point I would love to ask, because employers are not very kind people. When your time to go comes, you will go. So why should we approach employers from a point of pity, knowing very well that this is my skill set and I cannot accept this amount? Because if we go on, there are people who are young and we are expecting jobs, and if we carry along this mentality, that's why when we get to class, people will get excited if our lecturers tell us that we will get a job that pays us 50,000, and we know.
Let me start with you, Danset, coming this side.
I'm responding to Elder's question about the application letter. How long should it be and how should it be structured? If possible, let it not go beyond 1 page. And in that 1 page, remember that what you're putting in the application is a detail in your CV. So in that 1 page, just do an intro. Of course, make sure that your address and the recipient's address are clearly done, and the ref, and of course the subject. And it's always important to address to dear, you know, if it is dear, you may not know the name of the person, but it's always good to address it to dear manager, HR manager, or dear director, rather than dear sir, madam. We are away from those things. That gives you a personal touch, a personal relationship with the person you're addressing. And then as you come to the content of the letter, we've said you make it very brief, and the ideal is to do, you know, to bullet, have it in point form, and let them be between 3 to 5 points. I'm applying for this job. I saw it, you know, wherever you saw it, and these are the reasons I feel I am the most suitable candidate for this position. 1, you list, and now you know you're speaking from your experience, your papers, your competency, and the achievements that you have. Those are the things that are, you know, the employer wants to see in the points. So you have from the most important to the least important, but make them, the first 5. You could be having about 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, but just pick on the first 5 and then list them there, so that now the person reading your application letter, remember when they're doing shortlisting, they have about 1,000 of them to go through. So for them to pick what you can do, let them see that on your application letter. And then of course end it at the last paragraph there by saying that mention now this way again. It is going to be seen whether you've done enough research of the organization, that I am fit to take part or to be part of, the person to add value in your objectives, which among others include, list the objectives of the company there, the company you're applying to. And then, once again, thank them. So you need to do your background checks of the organization that you're applying to.
Is that the one you are answering, or you'll be answering one?
No, I would like to respond to the I don't know one. Okay, there's nothing wrong with not knowing, because ideally, there's nothing wrong with not knowing, because why are we here? We're here to learn so that you can get to be better. As we said earlier, you don't start from above going down. You're starting from down going up. There's always an opportunity to learn. But again, it depends on how you're going to say you don't know. You might come for an interview and then you're there saying, I don't know to every question. Were you prepared for that interview? No, you are not. But the thing is, if you did so well in the other questions, and then there's this particular one that you don't know, the panel will take that opportunity and explain what it is unto you so that it can be of help to you. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, if you sincerely don't know.
Thank you very much. But you must know the most important question. Even if you knew everything else, and the most important question you don't know, I am afraid you don't get the job. The young people have asked, they're saying when they come and they're asking for 100,000, for heaven's sake, they think that they can't take 30,000 because they have also looked at their profile and they have a first class. Why would you want to deny them a job, and they have asked for the figure that they think is the right figure for them?
Thank you. Maybe let me just add to the I don't know question. I've been in interviews where I've been asked a question and I do not know. What we need to know is panelists don't just look at one question. They look at a number of things. And how you respond tells a lot. You may say, I'm not aware about that, but it's something which I may be willing to learn and find out. So you also need to see how you respond to those questions. You don't just say, I don't know. Because nobody knows everything, yeah? There are certain things we know, others we don't know, and we learn over time. So it's not a crime not to know, but just how you respond. Now, to the young people, you've applied for a job, you want how much? 100,000, and you're being offered 30,000. I think you need to understand the environment we're operating in. I think 20 or 30 years ago, it was very easy to get a job straight from O-level, from school, high school. After high school, you have a job, given a very decent job. But over time, what has happened? More and more people got an opportunity to go to school. Papers are everywhere. People have not only 1 degree, 2 degrees, some even have PhDs. I mean, I've seen stories of guys with PhDs who are jobless. So what then happens? The employers are taking advantage of that situation. They know there's a lot of paper out there. People are qualified. People are jobless. The economy is not growing the way it should be growing. Employment is not being created the way it should be created. If I'm an employer, I want to make sure I minimize. I get the best. And it's unfortunate, I mean, to say employers are unfair. That is the reality of life. That's where we are headed. If I can get, let me give you a classic example. In the old days, Barclays used to employ people from high school. Over time, that went to you must have a university degree. Now, when there were so many university degrees and people were asking for so much, what did they do? They decided to go lower and ask for diploma holders. To ask for who? Diploma holders, who can do the job and they're much cheaper. So if you have a first class and somebody has a diploma and he can do that job, and you're asking for 100,000 and this guy wants 30,000, who will the employer go for? Yeah. So we need to understand the environment we are operating in. Secondly, there are so many people who go and work for free. Why do they do that? To get that experience, to have a foothold into the job market. Once you are in there and you're able to demonstrate that you have what it takes, then you will rise up in the organization. And let me give an example of banks. What banks are now doing, they employ people on 1-year contracts. Not because they don't have papers, they have papers. But if you can demonstrate that you're up to the task, after that 1-year contract, you're converted to permanent. So what I want to tell the young people, take that money. There are people who are willing to work for free just for experience. Take that job and sell yourself. I always tell the young people, your future is in your hands. When you get into a job, learn to challenge your boss. Make sure you learn and learn and learn. And don't only restrict yourself to the department you're working in. Ask for exposure in other places. Yeah? And if they see you have the drive, then they know here we have somebody who has great potential. So employers are not bad people. You are your own worst enemy. Learn to understand where we're operating in and look for opportunities to be able to come out of that. So finally, let me say this. If you have a job and you have to leave, will your employer ask you to stay? Or will your employer say, good riddance to bad rubbish? Ask yourself that. Or if you are an employer yourself, would you employ yourself? Think about that. Would you employ yourself? So those are things which we need to think about and know the environment we're operating in is totally different. Things are changing. Things are fast changing. And with the technology, work can be done pretty quick without human intervention. That is the reality we are facing now. Increasingly, most companies want to digitize so that they reduce reliance on human intervention. So if you get something, take that, whatever they're giving you. Yeah? So I think my last point is I've changed jobs several times. And each time when I'm moving on, my employer will come and tell me, must you leave? Must you leave? Is there anything we can do for you? You need to work so that you have that kind of relationship with your employer. Your employer knows you're diligent. Your employer knows you play a big part. Your employer will not, when he tells you, when you're handing in the letter, the next day you're removed from the computer. Don't be in that situation.
This is deep now. Will you be that employee on the day you said you are resigning, all you have been having is transfer earning from your parents? Please work even for free. I think that's the advice that is coming from here. Prove that you are worth, I am going for something else. Let me tell you, if you are the one that they have been looking for, even committees will be called at night to request you to stay on. We are talking about, I'm an economist, about demand and supply of labor. You must know where we are in these times. Never say that you're so indispensable, then you stay home for many years without a job. It's good to be in there doing something than being at home doing nothing. Let me ask my wife from a government perspective. My wife is one person who prepares so well for a CV. If you have a job to give, don't call my wife for an interview because you really must give it to her. So think twice before you do that. Judy, please come. And from a government perspective, I'd like to give you 1 minute to share your own experience along the issues that you're talking about. And, but as you get to the front, you go to the front. But my elder is burning. My elder was there another question? I am already closing this session. Elder, you make it 30 seconds.
I want to add to what my friend and colleague has talked about. The employer, by the time they are advertising, they know the job content, they know the kind of person they're looking for, and they know how much budget they have put for that job. And therefore, even as they are interviewing, they have a very clear idea of how much they're willing to pay. So it is not how much you're telling them you're worth, but what they think the job is worth. But when they see that you're worth more, they're willing to negotiate with you. Now, the other thing I want to add is that you've talked about information technology. Right now, young people think that they can start their own businesses, they can start their own things. But it is absolutely important. You need corporate experience. I have seen young people who have started their own businesses. They're doing extremely well. They're making so much money. But there are huge gaps because they do not have an idea of how systems in organizations work. You need that experience, irrespective of whatever industry you're going to go into. That is absolutely critical.
Great. 30 seconds.
Sorry, some question came in mind as you were just speaking. The first question I want to ask is about if you took another job elsewhere, then you got let's say you applied a job somewhere, you got success.
You think is that because luckily we are in a technology world, it is to try and see where you fill the gaps, and that's what the employer will notice. Because if academia, everyone has the same academics, sometimes those first classes don't matter. Everyone will come and say, I have a BA, I have an MA, I have even a PhD. So what will differentiate you would be the other competencies. So the competencies will include your communication skills, your organizational skills, and any other project management. And these kind of trainings may not be taught in mainstream training. So I think that's why people are always developing themselves to create the brand. So you develop yourself by having the additional trainings that you can do in the evening, and normally are short courses, so that you are rich. And when an employer sees you, you are a package. You don't want a person who's just in a silo, can only do front office, and yet you cannot manage. So I think that completeness is what's attractive to an employer. Now, a question.
True.
you'll always be asked to explain about yourself. Tell us something about yourself. That is an opportunity to sell yourself. They have your CV, of course, but remember that they may not have read your CV in detail. Remember that about maybe 15 of you have been shortlisted, and they may not have really read your CV. That is number one. Number two, it is also good when it comes from your mouth. Remember, someone else could have done that CV for you. The same way I said it here, someone did a CV for someone who came, and even his just personal appearance will tell you that this CV is not this person. So when you speak it, sometimes you may even say things that are not in the CV, but you're selling yourself. Because you're saying the capabilities and the abilities that you have, and the kind of person that you are, that in those 2-3 sentences about yourself, the employer can say that actually we are almost getting the right fit for this position. So that is very critical.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Danset. Let me hear the rest of the answers for the rest of the questions.
Responding to the question on how best can we get employees, that depends on organizations. We have policies on organizations. Number 2, we have budgets. Number 3, it depends on the agency. If we needed someone urgently, we will rely on referrals. If there's a policy that outlines how recruitment should be done, starting with advertisements, we have no choice. We have to follow the policy. So it's not cast on stone. It depends on the need of the organization and the policies that are in place. Let me also respond to Vera's question on salary. How much do I ask for? When you asked, how much salary do you expect? So number 1, before you go for that interview, you should do research so that you get to know the position that you're being interviewed for, what is the salary bracket? Because this information is out there. So if you ask, you'll get to know. Organizations have job grids. An example, maybe you are applying for an entry-level position. There are salary brackets. Entry-level salary 40 to 100K. So when you have that knowledge and information, it will be easy for you to play within that range. At the end of the day, you will not change yourself.
I think just to add to what she has said in terms of how much you should ask for, as a person who was sat in the panel, if you ask for 100%, definitely that is a no-go zone, because we ask you how much are you currently earning. I think reasonably, as you do your own research, 30% is a reasonable figure. Yeah?
What is 30% of zero?
Well, 30,000. 30% of zero. Or if you do 30,000 will do with that. Yeah, so about 30%. If you have a job, 30% is a reasonable figure which we can look at. Now, I want to cover two questions. When you're leaving and you get a counter offer. The question was, do you stay or do you leave? That was the question, right? I think the way I respond to it is, first, when you made the decision to look for another job, what was driving you? Was it more money, or was it career progression, or was it experience? Or are you a gun for hire? The highest bidder, wins. You need to be very careful. From my experience, when you accept to stay on and get a counter offer, more is expected of you. More pressure will be on you, and people start looking at you differently. If you are very clear why you're looking for another job, you've made a decision to look for another job, my advice is move. That demonstrates you're a principled person. Because if I get a letter, and it has happened to me, I've gotten a letter, I hand in my resignation letter, then I'm told, what do you want? I said, no, I went through this process, and I committed. I think that is integrity. So you need to be a person of integrity. When you make a decision, stick to that decision. You don't want to start wobbling. Should I? When you look for a job, go. Now, on job hopping, I think increasingly we are seeing a lot of that, especially with the young people. there could be some benefits to it, but at the same time, there's a downside. The benefit is, you're getting more money as a young person, but are you solid enough to do a role without having the experience that is required in the next level? For example, if I take a job and work there for 1 year, when you go to a new institution, how long does it take you to settle? Will you settle in 1 month, or will you settle in 6 months? Because you need to understand the culture, you need to understand the processes, you need to understand the people, and that takes time. So by the time you understand how it runs, then you need maybe another 18 months for you to deliver on that job. So if you're moving after every 1.5 years, then you're on shaky ground, you're not a solid person. So ideally, maybe for you to be solid and to have experience so that you can be able to do jobs at a much higher level, 3 to 4 years is reasonable. Because you must demonstrate and prove that I've done this job for 3 years, and these are the results. Because if I interview you and you tell me you've done a job for 1 year, what can you deliver in 1 year, realistically? I really doubt that you can be able to deliver on that. I think that's what I will say about job hopping. Yes, it is important to move from one job to another, but at the right time with the right experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Judy Nyakawa. The floor is yours. And in particular, I would like you to touch on that story of the 2 twins who appeared before your panel, maybe not in detail, and they really amazed you. What is it that you're looking for as a parting shot?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Saints. I think, let me be quick to say that government is a very structured and conservative organization. It's okay. And government the wheels in government turn very slowly. So if you choose to work in government, you are somebody who is willing to stake in their 10, 20 years. I'm doing my 25th. But I also want to be quick to say that the government of Kenya is a very good employer. If you are a fresh graduate, and you are a young lady especially, and you are thinking of marriage in the next 1 or 2 years, and thinking to have children in the next 5 or so years, all your 3 children or 4, government is a good place to look. Because government will allow you to settle in, and government will allow you time with your children, which most corporates will not allow you. Most mothers have to choose either their careers or their families. I've had the privilege of working in government for so long, and I have had a chance to sit with my children and attend every school function, every school, most of the school functions, school sports day, school prize giving days. I am able to do that because I work in government. But having said that, I also want to say that when we do our CVs, every statement in your CV should count for something. I've sat in panels and I've seen very good candidates. And if I see a Seventh-day Adventist young person in the team that's being interviewed, I'll be biased towards this person. But sometimes I get very disappointed because once the person walks in, I'm trying not to peg the name to the faith. So I want to see all the past people who have come. But when we are now down to the last 5 or 10 people, I find the person who said they were Adventists, there's nothing Adventist about them. In fact, they're just like everybody else. When we say we are Adventists, it's a brand, and it must count for something. So if you're a Seventh-day Adventist young woman and you're coming to an interview panel, I have expectation as a panelist. There's something I'm looking for. But if I find you coming along like everybody else with everything that everybody else has, you disappoint me. I also want to say that when we are looking for jobs and we have not disciplined ourselves in terms of hard work and in terms of timekeeping, we are going to become a disappointment to ourselves in the long run. I was telling my son this morning, even the late President Daniel Arap Moi was the president of this country, and we paid all his bills, including the one that we did on Wednesday. We paid all his bills as a president. But did you know that he woke up early? Moi was up at 4 a.m. in the morning. As a president, why would you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning? Everything is covered. And yet the rest of us who are struggling, we have nothing, we have no bus fare, we are sleeping up to 8 o'clock. And you have no bus fare. No unalala too. Instead of waking up early, you walk half the distance and brush your shoes somewhere along the way and get to the... I'm just saying that we must not be apologetic about our situations. My other son says, some of us have a victim mentality. Oh, I'm from a poor home, my father never helped me. And that's the currency we want to use. That's not currency. Currency is to show up and sit up and look the part. The young man my husband is talking about, I was doing, by the way, in terms of issues of salary, the pegs of salaries, when you go to an interview, sometimes try and overprice yourself kidogo. When you are a good person, the panelists know who a good candidate is, and they'll try to rise to where you are. I saw this young man came to my office. This is not government finance. This is funded by the World Bank. So the salary structure for the World Bank is totally different. In fact, I'll tell you, the World Bank salary is actually a yours for the asking. What are you asking for? So we're not asking you about, we're not discussing budgets here. We are asking, are you the best candidate? Yes. What is your price? So when we ask you, what is your price? We want to know that you are a Toyota or a Mercedes-Benz. So if you are a Mercedes-Benz, quote the price of a Mercedes-Benz. So this young man comes into the panel, just wearing his trouser and shirt and tie, very neatly dressed, very neat. He's about 25 years old, very neat. And he strikes me as a very neat young man. His hair is well cropped, well styled, not these big hairs that people like around here. And so he sits there, and we interview him. And so we ask him, how much is your salary? What is your current pay? He says, I do part-time at the university where I'm working. I deal a lot with the students. I'm the front face of the university when I'm dealing with the students. My current salary is 25,000 shillings. Okay. How much are you asking for? And he says, Madam, if you give me 50,000, I'll be fine. The salary for that position, the minimum salary, was 200,000 Kenya shillings. And he was the best candidate. I interview another 2-3 people, another person comes, his older brother. They look exactly alike. Same height, same body, same dressing. And I asked myself, I thought I've just interviewed you, why are you back here? He says, no, that's my younger brother. And I said, why have you come to the interview? I said, well, we saw the job and both of us were interested and we work in the same organization, so we gave it a shot. He did very well, but the younger brother was a better person. Suffice it to say that that young man got into the position at 200,000 shillings. What he multiplies is that? From 25K to 200. All I want to say is, and I told him when eventually he has come to the office and he's turning my office around. And eventually I asked him, so tell me about yourself, who are you? So he says, I say, you have a praying mother. He says, yes, my mother is a praying mother, and my father as well. And he tells me he's a Seventh-day Adventist. And I could see a pathfinder, born, bred, died in the wool in the church. You can see it into the job market. So the things we are teaching children in the church are supposed to help them to transition into the marketplace. So don't go out there and be apologetic. If you are the good candidate, you will get the position. One last thing I want to say. Learn to ride on the networks you have in the house of God. Ride on the networks. Just this week, I have sent out to various groups in this church 2 positions, environmental safeguard specialist and social safeguard specialists from the same program in where I work. What I get amazed about our church, nobody reaches out to say, this is my area. What are you looking for? People don't reach out in this church. We have sent many of those in the youth groups, in the women ministries, even the Public Service Commission internship program. Didn't we send onto the women ministries front panel? Many of you are actually qualified for those positions. But once we send out and we say, please send this to the youth, please send this to the young couples, send this to the AMO, we expect somebody to find out, is there anybody who can help me find my way in this thing? I actually even meet youth and I say, did you see this advertisement? They say, yes, we saw it. Did you apply? I'm still thinking. You are thinking in this market? You are thinking about applying? You should not sleep before applying. You shouldn't sleep. So all we are saying is ride on the networks you have. And this church God has gifted this church in amazing ways. There are many people in this church who can help you find your level and find your entry points. We are not saying we'll give you the jobs, but we are saying if you showed interest, that is how come people get connected. Just one more experience. A friend of mine, we work with her. She sits in the steering committee in the program that I'm talking about. And so she asked me, do you have a position for a legal officer? I said, no, we don't have a position for legal, but the Public Service Commission has advertised for this internship program. So I know he can't get a job straight away, but if he got himself into this internship program, then he might find his way to the Attorney General's office or the DPP's office, and that's how he'll find his level. And I tell her, this is the Public Service Commission website, this is the link, please ask the young man to apply. And the young man applies, and he calls me and says, I have applied. And he calls me and says, I hear they are now shortlisting. And he calls me and says, I hear the interviews are out. Can you see the interest from other people out there in the market? But our children, I think we are too comfortable children. We are a very comfortable lot. When somebody sends you a link, there's a young man, Dottie would share this. We had this, not internship, but scholarships by the British Council. And it was sent in the Women's Ministry's website, and we said, please send to all the youth in the church. I don't know that the youth applied. But one of our young men from New Life SDA Church, an orphaned, father died when they were small children. The mother died when he was in Form 2, and there are just two of them in their family, him and his little brother. As we speak today, Sydney is doing his fully paid scholarship by the British government in the UK. Never, and I don't say there are too many people applying. If there are 100 people applying, I'm one of the 100. If there are 1,000 people applying, I'm one of the 1,000 people. Don't say there are too many. You must.
Much. We'll be having more of this as Family Life. I wish to stop here. Please, hands together for the panelists. Thank you so very much. I'd like to invite my elder, Harrison Owino, to give us direction on the next program. And God bless you so very much.
Thank you, John. What is coming out, that it is quite interesting. We still have breakout session, and we'll do it pretty fast because I know my pastors are ready with a presentation. This is how we are going to do it. Please, let's take about 15 minutes because time has gone. We needed to finish by 4, but I'm requesting you that please let's do it within a short period of time. We plan to be out of this place by exactly 5. Please, I request for you are indulgent in this so that we can move pretty fast. This is how we are going to do it. For the senior couples, I will actually remain here. The youth will go out the far end of the tent. We have the singles, the first tent. Then the children will be here, outside here. Please, let's take 15 minutes. Youth and ambassadors, you will take the first tent. Then we have the last tent. Then we have the singles. Then we have the children here. Please, let's take about 15 minutes so that we come back here to wrap it up. No. We'll combine. Yeah, we'll combine. Young couples and seniors, they will all be here. Please, let's do that. As we do that, please find a group of your choice where you belong. In the next 15 minutes, we'll be back here. We'll do it pretty fast because I know you guys are prepared, so we have to go. Yeah. Yes, yes. Okay. You remain here.
The session for here starts now. So those of you supposed to go out, you're not supposed to hear this, please.